Sup peeps, Rockskull here. We recently had a second bald Vecna released in DVD, but this time from Stranger Things. He has a pretty unique power with a high skill ceiling. So in this video, I'll be teaching you everything there is to know about playing as Vecna with basics, advanced tips, add-ons, and perks. Additionally, I'll show how to play against him later on for survivor players. A quick note that I will be referring to this Vecna as the first, like he's called in game for the majority of this video, just to make sure there isn't any confusion in exactly which Vecna I'm talking about. Starting out with the basics, the first has the normal 32 meter tear radius at base that survivors here, and he has an average killer height. However, his walk speed is 4.4 meters a second. This means he is a bit slower than the average killer, who typically has 4.6. Instead, he has the same speed as the Huntress, for example. Survivors move at 4 meters a second for comparison. The main power you realize you have as the first is the Vine attack, a ranged attack that you can cast through walls to hit survivors. It slows you down a bit while casting, and has a 3-second cooldown before you can use it again. Important to note that there is an anti-camp feature with this ability where you can't use it right after unhooks. There's also the upside down undergate, which allows you to travel around the map with no tear radius at an increased speed. You can go straight through windows, breakable walls, and down pallets with this ability. However, survivors can see the black smudge on the ground, and the loud noise you make while the first is moving around. To get out of the ground, you must perform the undergate attack, which creates a very large but slow charging radius around you to hit survivors. It takes 1 second to charge the attack to full. Something you may have realized is that you can't actually hit survivors at first with his power attacks though. Instead, you have to get a survivor's world breaker charges up by hitting them with your power. The Vine attack does 1 charge, while the undergate does 2 charges. Every 2 charges done on a single survivor makes it so world breaker mode begins. And if a survivor's world breaker charges are at a max of 4, it will only take 1 Vine attack charge to enter world breaker hitting that survivor. World breaker charges do not go up while in world breaker. World Breaker lasts 4 minutes at base depending on the amount of survivors alive. And in World Breaker, you can injure any of the survivors with the Vine attack and undergate. If a survivor on Deathhook with max World Breaker charges gets hit with a Vine attack in World Breaker, they can be instantly moried. The survivors do have access to clocks to reduce the duration of World Breaker, but the last 1/4 of the time cannot be sped up as shown in red here. Now for advanced tips playing as the first, TLDR, you're going to have to get good at big brain predicting survivors through walls with your Vine attack. If you have experience with Nurse or Pyramid Head, this killer might be for you. Preferably, you're going to want to place it where you think the survivor is going slightly, instead of directly where they are. It's important to note that it is pretty easy for survivors to counter you by simply holding W. So make sure you aren't spamming your power too much unless you are already in a loop. Even then, while in a loop, I don't recommend spamming the power against better survivors. Sometimes you might have to hold it to learn their movements and adjust, to see which survivors juke and which don't. It's also important to remember that there is now a 1.5 second cooldown to canceling Vine attack as of the live patch. So be careful trying to use this as a zoning tool for a free basic attack. This Vine attack power is also insanely good at snowballing when needed. Snowballing in DBD is the act of getting multiple injuries in a small amount of time, which he can easily do with his power. I'd argue he's even better than even Huntress at this, as he can literally hit people through walls. I've gotten 2 to 3 downs easily before within like 30 seconds of each other for reference. Now the undergate attack I wouldn't recommend using in chase at all in its current state, unless a survivor has massive distance on you. The time it takes to go in and out of this ability makes it only really good for getting around the map in my opinion. Survivors can dodge the attack pretty easily too if they just hold W. Not much to say about World Breaker other than always remember to focus on getting into this mode as fast and as frequently as possible. Target survivors with more World Breaker charges for a better chance. The first has a lot of pretty good add-ons that can be useful and interesting in their own right. I think what you should choose depends on your preferred playstyle. Like Orderly ID and Smash Cassette Deck are good for early game. Orderly ID gives you 2 more meters of range on your Vine attack while out of World Breaker, and Smash Cassette Deck makes it so all survivors start with 1 World Breaker token. Be careful though, as it does come with the downside of survivors losing all their World Breaker tokens when your first World Breaker is active. It does also have a bonus upside of having 1 less grandfather clock though too. Mid-Century Radio, Electrode Cap, and Black Widow Spider are all solid aura reading. Mid-Century Radio makes it so survivors 32 meters or more away from you working on clocks get revealed. Electrode Cap makes it so survivors 26 meters from you get revealed for 6 seconds in the last 1/4 of World Breaker. And Black Widow Spider reveals the furthest survivor away from you whenever you go into Upside Down while in World Breaker. And Clock Hands, Forged Death Certificate, and Iridescent Chip are some fun stealth add-ons. Clock Hands make survivors oblivious when interacting with grandfather clocks, which if you don't know, makes it so you have no tear radius from their POV. Forged Death Certificate reduces your tear radius by 12 meters for every World Breaker token you put on a survivor before World Breaker, but resets when World Breaker begins. Then finally, Iridescent Sotera Chip makes it so you completely lose your tear radius when World Breaker begins. And survivors within 12 meters of you constantly have their auras revealed, making it an insanely good chase add-on. It's important to mention, though, that this deactivates once you lose your power in any way, or World Breaker ends, so it really only is something to help you get a free first hit. If you want a fun World Breaker chase combo, you can run Pizza Goggles and Bloody Roller Skate. Pizza Guggles pretty much halves your undergate cooldown, but makes it almost impossible to hit survivors with it. I think this actually works well with the Bloody Roller Skate add-on, though, as it kind of means you can consistently chase down survivors with the 20% speed out of undergate. Bloody Roller Skate is honestly just a good add-on in general. If you just want the best of the best add-ons, I think currently this goes to Rabbit Remains and Gutted Super Calm. Rabbit Remains causes survivors to get instantly exhausted in your undergate attack radius, but it's important to mention it applies even before the attack is fully casted, making it super easy to land. This might be a must pick for most people to counter the speedy exhaustion perks that counter this killer pretty hard. Gutted Super Calm is really good because it gives you constant aura reading before World Breaker for 1.5 seconds after hitting Vine attack, which is really good early game to easily get into World Breaker. It also works sending a survivor into World Breaker for a free injury after. This comboed with a perk like Lethal Pursuer is insane, as it makes it 3.5 seconds of free aura reading. Now an interesting add-on I definitely think is really good after some testing is Chest Piece, which gives you 2 charges of the Vine attack, but makes it harder to hit with a smaller radius. If you're good enough at this, you can straight up put survivors in lose-lose scenarios where they can't dodge your power. It's also possible to get double hits, which is insane on this killer, as it means you can be put into World Breaker instantly, or instantly down a survivor. This Iridescent is arguably his best add-on, but you have to be good enough at it to get to that point. For perks, I'd say in general the first does really well with aura reading perks. Ones that help you see survivors during chases like Predator, I'm All Ears, and Zanchin Tactics are great for learning the power. Nurse's Calling can be a neat one to help you possibly get a surprise free double hit on survivors that are healing through walls. Aura perks that help you see survivors across the map like Bitter Murmur, Lethal Pursuer, Discordance, and Barbecue are great for whenever you use Undergate too. I think another class of perks the first is pretty good with are anti-exhaustion perks. Mindbreaker, Languid Touch, and Blood Echo are all solid options. As mentioned in the add-on section, the reason he benefits so much from them is because one of his biggest counters are those speed boost exhaustion survivor perks. So adding a perk to your build that disables them isn't a bad idea. Stealth is a mixed bag on this killer with how slow he is, but if you run a perk like Unforeseen with aura reading perks, you can get scares on people hitting them through walls with your power. The first can be a decent totem defender with his undergate map mobility and the ability to hit survivors through walls. So picking hex perks like Ruin and Pentimento can be a decent idea as well. Just remember to avoid exposing totem perks like Devour and Haunted Grounds, as he isn't really a killer that uses basic attacks a lot. Of course, the boring odd gen slowdown perks work, like Pain Res, Grim Embrace, and Pop. An important note with the gen kick perks is that it does not work with the Shattered Wrist Rocket add-on, which if you don't know, allows you to kick gens out of Undergate. So don't run this add-on if you have any gen kick perks on. Also, ironically enough, his new perk Turn Back the Clock isn't amazing on him either in my opinion, because you can't actually use it while in Undergate, so it's only possible to use when you're moving around as a 4.4 meters a second killer. It's not the worst, but I think Pain Res does the job of this perk better for him. As I mentioned briefly before, other perks I would not recommend are ones based on basic attacking survivors. For example, Friends to the End, although admittedly the aura rating is still really nice on this perk for him, or heal slowdowns with basic attacks like Sloppy Butcher. The first is a slow 4.4 killer that relies mainly on a special Vine attack to hit survivors, so any perks that buff your basic attack aren't really needed. Finally, we'll finish this video off on how I'd recommend playing against the first for survivor players. Overall, sound is your best friend when playing against this killer, as you will hear a distinct high-pitched ding sound when he's charging the Vine attack power. Whenever he is in Undergate, he's very loud as well. So I'm sorry you music gamers, but you might have to turn that Rock Skull outro theme down a bit if you want to win. Additionally, as I mentioned briefly before, holding W against this killer is extremely good. He's a 4.4 killer that definitely has a range limit with his power, so take advantage of any time you can gain distance on him. Exhaustion perks like Lithe, Overcome, and Sprint burst can be his biggest counters. If you are in a close range chase scenario, in general it's all about juking mind games. Similar to killers like Huntress and Deathslinger, you can do things like juke a window while they cast their power at it, then vault the window before he can even hit you with a basic attack. There's a lot of little stuff like that, so it really is a mind read game between killer and survivor in these scenarios. Also, of course, I think a good general tip for World Breaker is just do the clocks as much as possible when it's up. The less he's in this mode, the better, and as long as a clock is right next to you, it doesn't hurt to go on it for a few seconds. Having multiple survivors on clocks at once does speed it up, by the way, but it's not something that's needed to do really. If you see a teammate on a clock, you can probably just chill doing something else like a generator. That's going to conclude this guide on the first. Let me know in the comments any additional tips for this killer I may have missed, as well as any questions you may have. I always try to respond and read every comment. Also, if there's any updates to this killer's powers / add-ons, I'll put a pinned comment with any important additional info for this guide. Thank you all for the support as always, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.
Rock skull. All he wants to do is stream all night. Lobby full, rock skull. Never gonna play with me, but it's alright.